so many people are doing so many things that are negating optimal sleep that they're not remotely aware of.
Could you get on board with a headline that breathwork is the new meditation? Or do you think they are still separate enough that that doesn't quite work?
Recently, I've got back into the mouth taping, which I've noticed I feel just that bit more energy in the morning. Even though I feel like I'm not a mouth breather overnight, but there probably are moments where I'm breathing through my mouth, because I definitely feel less dehydrated and more energized in the morning when I do tape.
Harry Kalymnios, how you doing, my friend? It's been a little while. We haven't caught up for a few weeks. Are you good?
Good evening, Nick. And I want to say good evening, although if we were recording this 6 months ago, I'd be saying good afternoon, I think, because every time I look at my watch these days, it's really weird numbers. Like right now I've looked at it and it said 17:17, but I'm always getting kind of like, 19:19 and 17:17 and 11:11, but it's 17:17 and it's pitch black outside. I feel like I'm hibernating. As since we've spoken, the clocks have gone backwards.
Yeah. You don't look like you've been hibernating. You've got a glow. I'm sensing that's either a new podcast light or you've been lying on a very strong radioactive sunbed. You've got a nice glow today, bud.
Yeah, I think it's I've got like the special evening light coming from one side. I've got the ring light coming from behind the camera, and then I've got the daylight bulb. The challenge I've got in this winter time, I've got to say, is as it gets dark around really 4:30 sunset, I think, and I really can't take lights in the evening because it's been 10 years since I've been full on with lights. So I tend to have the lights quite low from about 5 o'clock, and often put my blue blockers on from about 6. So by 8:30, honestly, I've been going to bed. Like my Aura ring is saying my bedtime window, ideal bedtime, is between 9 and 10 now. Before, you used to say between 10 and 11 or something. But I've been going to bed around 9:30 for a good few weeks.
Early.
And
Oh my God.
waking up around 5:30, mind you. Sometimes staying in bed, sometimes getting up, and it's pitch black. But yeah, I struggle because I just don't want to do anything in the winter. And when I'm in for the evening, I'm in for the evening. So last night, actually, I had quite a long day. I drove up from Brighton to teach in Heathrow area, and then I came back. So it was 2-hour plus journey there, and there was an hour and a half to get to North London when I came back and stayed at my mum's. I got back about 5:30. I was actually pretty desperate for the loo, but I thought I'm not going to go in the house, because if I go in the house, I'm not going to go out again. And I had a bit of a headache. I'd been indoors all day. I hadn't left the school since I got in, and I went straight from my house to the car, from the car to the school. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go for like a half an hour walk, and not have any audio inputs, not have anything. Went for a walk for half an hour, came back, and felt so much better, because I know that if I'd gone into the house at 5:30, I would have wanted to lie down for half an hour, 45 minutes. I was that shattered. But going for that half an hour walk rejuvenated me, and I was good to go until about 9:30, then went to bed. So this glow that you're seeing is definitely not from any sunshine.
No, I can tell that, to be fair. I'm watching on YouTube. We'll know I'm only jesting with you. Although it's quite interesting, a few things you said. You're talking about sleep. So obviously the clocks have gone back. Last night I had a long day. I came back from Manchester on a 6-hour train. I had a conference up in Manchester. Well, I gave out my first talk actually on fear, which we'll talk about another day. But yeah, so my sleep is not so good at the minute, but then I keep making silly errors, like having a couple of ciders too many, and then setting 2 alarms by mistake. One when I had to get up to play paddle, which was at 6, and then another alarm which I mistakenly set at 2:15. So I went to bed at 12:30 after a few too many ciders, set my alarm. And because I thought I'd only set one alarm, I jumped out of bed and thought, I feel terrible. Like, I can't play paddle like this. I'm tired. I feel hungover. I went and got ready because I assumed I'd only set one alarm. I didn't bother checking the time. I just turned the alarm off. Just knew that was the time to wake up. And of course, as the clocks have gone back, everything was dark. So why would I think anything different? I was in a hotel. It was dark. So I get up, come back, get myself ready to go, literally to go down to try and wake myself a paddle. Looked at my phone and realized it was 17 minutes past 2. And I was like, in the morning, I was like,
God.
set the
How
wrong
can you
alarm.
get that far along without realizing? Who were you playing paddle against?
That's a good habits though, right? You have an alarm, you think you set it correctly. All you do is snooze, get up and go. I didn't bother to check, and I actually try not to check my phone, because when I left it in my alarm, the last possible minute I could probably get up to still make paddle on time. So I knew if I started scrolling on my phone at that time, that would end up missing my window. So I deliberately didn't look at my phone. It was get up and go until I got back. So that was quite frustrating. But what I thought was interesting, I don't know if you've seen this. I know sometimes you and I will Google, what's trending in the health and wellness space, what's trending in the mindfulness space, and there's a few things trending at the minute. There's a lot of sort of ancient ways of doing things, meeting the new world, and obviously we talk about gadgets and things. Lots of conversation about breath work. But one thing I've noticed, and you mentioned it then, and I probably mentioned it from the other side of the scale. But have you noticed there's almost weaponizing is too strong a word, but there is almost at the moment where sleep optimization is kind of a bit of a performance metric that people kind of use. It's become kind of the buzzword to say, and you listen to a Stephen Bartlett podcast and straight into, I get this much sleep and I get this much sleep. And I'm not saying it's not a superpower. It's an 18 billion pound industry, right? You and I talk about Oura rings and different types of weighted blankets. But it's really interesting how people now, particularly often successful people, that are doing quite well, will start utilizing sleep in a way that almost is like, I don't know, like a bit of one-upmanship. Are you feeling that as a little bit of one-upmanship when it comes to
You know
sleep?
what? I don't necessarily, but if it was the case, I still think that's a better one-upmanship than it used to be, which we used to be, sleep is
How long I can stay up
for
for?
losers, sleep when I dead, all of this
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
I do
stuff.
agree with that.
Uh,
But I guess maybe I'm in
oh,
tune about it because I struggle with sleep. So I hear it. It's like,
well, yeah, I guess if it quote unquote triggers people who have sleep issues. I was actually in Furniture Village the other day, and I was chatting to this person that I was looking for, just milling about really, but also kind of looking at tables. And we got chatting because they're trying to offer you coffees and teas and whatever to bring you in there for longer. And I was like, no, it's too late for me. I mean, not that I really drink it anyway, but it was 4 o'clock. And then we got into a whole discussion. I started talking to him about caffeine and half-life of caffeine and things he was interested in but had no idea about. And he goes, oh no, I should really cut down in the afternoon ones then. I was like, yeah, maybe. But yeah, for me, I actually did another lecture this week on sleep. So I often work for this executive development institute, I guess, out of Paris, and I do part of their faculty. I guess I'm part of their faculty, and that they have an executive development course, and I'm the last piece of the puzzle. And we do just like an hour really on wellness, but I tend to focus on sleep and part of the second book that I wrote, the Working Well stuff. So for me, I mean, I'm all for maybe making that sleep the one-upmanship in a way. And now, obviously, those with insomnia, it can be a bit of a trigger thing where you go, okay, I don't get enough sleep. And this is where I would say, sometimes it's always about quality. But also what I know from experience and from interacting with lots of people is so many people are doing so many things that
yeah.
are negating optimal sleep that they're not remotely aware of, right?
That's what
Even
my friend says,
like,
Trayton, you don't need to be ill to get better, right? It's just like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
last week, for example, was Halloween weekend. When I had two parties, like very low key parties. One was my sister's party, so it was only a
Oh,
few
you
people there.
usually
And
dress up. Did you dress up?
yeah, so I dressed up kind of the same both times. Well, the first time I actually used an outfit that I have had for about 13 years stored in the cupboard. It was actually from the last Sinners party that we hosted. So can't remember if you know this or not, but
I do.
there
You're
was me and
saints and
6 other
sinners.
friends. Yeah, the
Yeah.
7 well, no, it's the 7 Deadly Sinners. There were 7 of us, and we used to have our birthday party in this private members club, and we did it for 5 years running, and every year it was a big dress up affair. The first 3 years were uniform parties, then there was a Halloween one and an 80s one. And so I dished out the costume from there, which was like a drag, and we all wore the same one. All 7 of us wore the same one. And so I dished out that costume for the Friday night one, and then Saturday night was similar, but instead of the shirt for like a Dracula type thing, I had like a red and black Superman outfit, and I had just like blood, like I was a battle weary Superman. But both nights I was wearing my blue light blocking glasses, which I've not got on right now. And my brother-in-law, or not really brother-in-law, cousin brother-in-law, who's a doctor, and actually is very skeptical about lots of things. However, he does go on and on about how the fact that I helped change the way he breathed, because I recommended that book, Breath. I think you've read it, by James
I have
Nestor.
read it.
You've read that,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he loved it, and it really like changed his mindset and stuff. And then we were talking about my glasses and blue light blocking glasses, and I had a spare pair that he was wearing as well, you know, in a bit of a take the mick kind of fashion. But it still surprises me that, you know, so many people don't know some of the what I would consider now the basics around sleep.
Which I think
So
brings you back to the point I wanted to raise at the start when we talked about what's trending, which is a lot of people going, you know, you got an industry now at sleep, which I think is worth, I read it's worth 18 billion now, the sleep industry, in terms of trying to turn bedrooms into biolabs. I'm talking about things like the specifically around optimizing sleep. So smart mattresses, circadian lighting, sleep retreats, all that kind of stuff. It's a big
yeah,
industry, right? But actually what's trending at the minute is a lot of people going back to their roots. They're going back to the ancient roots of guided meditation, of yoga, of breath work, good nutrition where you do get the magnesium and the sunlight and all the different things that help with sleep. Just exercise. Some of the things that, like breath work, can actually be way more effective sometimes than the really expensive gadgets that are out there on the market. And of course, they don't always want to tell you these things because they want to sell their wares. And also, we had
mm,
a listener write in and say, you know, we, you and I love our gadgets, but what about people that can't, you know, always have the budget for it? From my perspective, I try and do both. I try and buy the gadgets because I think if I can get a little bit more optimal, I will. But it is easy sometimes to think you can biohack your way through everything. And sleep is an interesting
yeah.
one because you were saying, you know, we don't always help ourselves.
Yeah, I think with the sleep, so recently I've got back into the mouth taping, which I've noticed again, I feel just that bit more energy in the morning, right? Even though I feel like I'm not a mouth breather overnight, but there probably are moments where I'm breathing through my mouth, because I definitely feel less dehydrated and more energized in the morning when I do tape. And that doesn't cost anything. I know there's all these fancy, I think I looked online, you know, speaking of gadgets and all this and the other. Have you seen those little nose strips that people
Yeah.
wear, right? It's signed to wear. And there's ones where there's like magnets, which I thought was quite cool, but until I realized they were trying to do a subscription model, and I was like, how can you do a subscription? It's a magnet, but then what happens is there's little things that you have to stick onto your nose, I guess, and then the magnet is on the strip and it pulls it open. But anyway, I was thinking, okay, I'm sure that's great and it works, because whenever I've had a cold, sometimes I put a strip, and it definitely does help. But and then as part of the bundle, the reason I'm talking about it is part of the bundle, they were also trying to sell like mouth tape, and
Mouth
like, you
tape.
know, there's a whole industry around mouth tape. And I'm thinking that's fine. Like one of my friends in Austin, he wears a mouth tape, but I just use the little cheap £2 micro pore tape
Yeah.
that you get, which will last you months, maybe a year, when you do it for like £2, rather than all these things. So you don't need to spend much. But what I would say, is that you're spending hopefully maybe a third of your life in the bed, and it's the most important thing to get right. And I keep saying to people, I would much rather, like some people put a TV in the bedroom. Maybe you've got one as well. I think the, you know, couples that have a TV in the bedroom have something like 35% less sex than couples that don't. But rather than spend that grand on the TV, or £500 on the TV, or whatever it might be, I would say, you know, get rid of the TV, sell the TV, and spend that money on maybe some nice bamboo sheets, the weighted blanket. I've been a big fan of these grounding sheets for years, but the ones I found recently, that I get out of Australia, to the point that I bought another 3 recently. So now I have 5. So two in Brighton, 2 in London, and then I bought another one, an Emperor size one, because my sister and her husband have got an Emperor bed, and they weren't going to buy it, I don't think, because they are really pricey. But I felt like he's got a kind of a debilitating spine issue, and it's quite inflammatory. And I just thought, you know what? I was going to give it to them for Christmas, and I sort of have. I said it's for Christmas 2025, 26, 27, 28, and 29. So the next 5 Christmas presents, basically, because it was
Job
that
done.
expensive, and I just bought it. Yeah, and I
With
mean,
those,
obviously, I'm
I
going
mean,
to get them something.
sleep, you know, for someone who doesn't sleep very much, we know it improves everything from immunity to memory to just every aspect of health, really good sleep, right? It's when you have a chance to recharge. I do think that stat you mentioned about the sex one, though, I reckon that's got to be quite an old stat. I think you quoted that when we first started this podcast a couple of years ago, and I would actually challenge it. I'd certainly challenge it in my own marriage, and there is reasons for that. Maybe because my wife would actually love sleep, and she, like you, could sleep at 9:30 if she went to bed. I couldn't. I mean, if I went to bed early, it's an absolute and most insomniacs that I know would say the same. An early night is the quickest way to end up with insomnia for that night. Go to bed when you're tired. If you go to bed early and you try and give yourself an early night, what you're actually thinking about is sleep, and that's the last thing you want to be thinking about if you want to get to sleep. So, or is certainly is for the kind of insomnia that I've been struggling from. But interestingly, so my wife loves sleep. So if we didn't have a TV in our bedroom, this is what, and often, we don't always go to bed and watch TV. We don't always go to bed with a TV and have sex either, right? Just to put that out there, not that she'd appreciate me saying it. But there is a lot of couples who will spend the evening in front of the telly, probably most, and one or the other will fall asleep while they're there. So then what happens is you end up just going to bed and going to sleep. Whereas if you know that's going to happen, you can go to bed earlier, still get your TV fixed, but at least you're in bed already and ready, and you can have a little bit of fun at the same time. So I don't know if that stat would still
Surely they're going to fall
be
asleep in
true.
the bed if they were falling asleep on the couch.
Yeah, but if you've got families and things around, right? So I'm talking from experience. You can't get so frisky when you're on the couch watching TV, right? It's different when you're in your bedroom. You can, so you can still you can watch a bit of Traitors, and you can do a little bit of something else, and it's all right.
Get some more stats on that. I think that was from it's probably about 8
I
years
think
old.
I reckon it's an old stat. I only say that because the way we live our lives these days, with
honestly, I'd
the
say
changes in
even less
Netflix
now.
and streaming and everything else. I reckon that's a channel 1 to 4 stat, not a
Well,
modern
people are
Netflix,
having
Prime, and everything else.
generally people are having less sex now anyway. The under
I would agree with
25.
that. I mean, TV is a distraction from it as well, right?
Well, not just TV, but everything else, and plus, tiredness. When I think to my, not that I'm in a position to kind of pick and choose when I do it necessarily, but I always think, you know what, I'd much rather get sleep in. And just going back to your point about going to bed early, I never go to bed until I'm tired. That's the point. Is that I'm not going to bed when I'm not tired. I'm going to bed when I'm tired. But the way I'm setting up, say, things in the evening, and now my body is adjusted in such a way that I tend to get tired. I mean, what I'm doing right now is going to make me less tired because I've got the big
Sure.
full spectrum light going on here.
Because that's also the other thing. I've noticed in this sleep thing, you get.
Well,
So
my
here's an
body,
example. One of my sisters will say, "I go to bed I think she goes to bed at 8:00, but then she's up at 4:00." So people often forget the second part of the equation is how much sleep you get rather than what time you go to bed. Sure, that's the important bit. Providing you're sleeping, in an ordinary circadian
not
time of darkness
necessarily.
and light. Um,
Not necessarily. I would say, well, firstly, yeah, if I go to bed at, say, like last night, to be fair, last night I went to bed around 9:30. My body clock wakes me up about 5:30, like anyway, just bowel movements, whatever. And also part of that is because it used to be, say, 6, and then with the clock change, it became an hour earlier effectively, or things changed. But today I was able to go back to sleep, and I have these really deep, vivid dreams with these new bed sheets. And so I stayed in bed, like, it's basically sleeping most of the time for another couple of hours. So I didn't get up till 7:30. So I had a good 10 hours in bed. My numbers were off the charts, but I felt great, and I needed it because I had quite an exhausting day of travel and being indoors and everything else. But what did I want to say? Oh yeah, were you talking about? Just the other half of the equation. So yeah, your sister goes to bed at 8, wakes up at 4, right? All good, right? Same with, like, what's his name, the actor Mark Wahlberg, where he gets up at 3, but he goes to bed at 7. But what I would say is going to bed at 10 and waking up at 6 and getting 8 hours is far better than going to bed at 2 and waking up at 10 and still getting 8 hours. Okay. People may disagree with me on that, but there is a method to my madness in what I'm saying. That yes, you're still getting the 8 hours, but as the old wives thing goes, right, an hour before midnight is worth 2 after. It's generally the case. Now, I know some people, and I used to have a friend who used to go to bed at 4 and wake up at 12, and he used to do that for 20 years, right? So you could argue that maybe his body is adjusted to that, so he still gets that the right amount of deep sleep, because deep sleep happens towards the beginning of the night, dream sleep towards the end, and you kind of miss it when you jump in later. Now, I don't know if you sleep for 20 years, going to bed at 2 and waking up at 10, if it all shifts and it's all fine and dandy. Probably is, maybe,
I would say
because
it
the body
probably is. If you've
adapts.
got that level of routine, there are lots of people out there that work night shifts and do all kinds of things, and as long as they're getting the same amount of sleep, I would imagine your brain's very smart. It'd catch up. It'd
I
change.
think the main thing is consistency of schedule. And that's the main thing. But then you also have to factor in light dark cycles as well.
I
And
agree
if
with you.
your room is, say, pitch black, and it doesn't matter whether you're in the middle of the day sleeping, like I like to have a pitch black room, but also the temperature and everything else. So if you set things up, so let's say you go to bed at 4 o'clock every morning and wake up at 12, and you've been doing that for 20 years, and your room is pitch black, and then the blinds gradually open at midday and you get the light, it's probably your body clock has adjusted to a different cycle, right? Um,
I don't
so,
think
but most
my
people
body
aren't.
could could physically go to sleep earlier than 9:30 without medication. I don't think it'd happen. It doesn't help that I'm
It
giving you that
depends on.
statement, 'cause that's part of the problem. My
Uh,
psychology is always has not happened. Say again?
Surely it's about what time you've got up that day as well, or would it not
No,
matter?
no, not for me. No, no.
And
And
what
obviously part of the
happens?
problem is me giving you that statement because I'm self-fulfilling that prophecy by already putting in my
Yeah,
mind that it's
what I
not
would like
possible. But
to do. I know you stayed over in mine before, actually, but I think you stayed over in the summer. But if you come and stay over in the winter, right? Let's say next time you're in St Albans, come stay here instead of the hotel, and then come here. We'll have dinner at like 5:30, right? Like
mate, it's literally I
people in
had lunch
Florida.
at 4:30 today. That's so early. It's so early.
But I haven't had dinner yet, and I've had lunch early before I met you, so it's not always the case. But we'll have dinner early, say 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'll have all the special lights on. You put your glasses on, and then I want to see how, and we'll just go to bed when we're tired, right? And see what time that is, without looking at the time until the next day, and see what happens. That would be quite interesting for me
I'll be up for
as an experiment.
I'm up for anything. I'd give it a go. I'd give it a go.
It'd be quite interesting. What are you drinking there,
I feel
by the
like you'd
way?
be condemning me to a night of insomnia, but that's all right. I'm used to that. But the
What are
reason
you drinking in
being,
the can? I can't see
oh
it,
yeah,
Nick.
no,
What's
that
in the
won't be
can?
helping. I've got a Diet Coke on the table. Yeah. Yesterday I came back on the train and I think I had said to Lucy, "This is not good for my sleep." You know, I don't help myself. I'll be honest, and I'm quite upfront about it. I think I had about 6 black coffees yesterday on the train back. I was working and I was shattered from the night before. Got up early to play paddle. Plus, I had that alarm wake up at 2. And I'm very aware if I have black coffee after 2 o'clock, it's not good for me. But I had about 3 after that time. And yeah, I was quite
Mm.
wired yesterday. Despite all those, it does make a difference, and it does impact the quality of your deep sleep as well, for sure. So even though you get to sleep, yeah,
Yeah.
I looked at my data this
Fair.
morning. My data wasn't great.
To be fair, you'll be happy to know that I also had. I went past the Planet Organic today, which is one of these kind of Whole Foods health food stores, and I ended up purchasing this chocolate bar, which I like, called On Bar, and it's a bigger size bar, and I've had all of that. And, I mean, I've finished it by about 4 o'clock, which is just about my cutoff for sugar, but I can still feel a little bit more energy. And then the other day I was driving to Essex to do a workshop. So I think I set off around 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So quite early. So sometimes I fill one of these hot mugs with a mushroom coffee, which is generally a gentler high for me. And I don't drink coffee very often. And I've only started doing this in the last year. So I did maybe 12, 13 years with no coffee at all. And I got to the school, and I've been in the car for an hour and a half, and I'm there, and as they're checking me in and stuff, I'm doing push-ups against the counter. I'm doing some lunges because I'm like wired, because I'm not used to having, like, I
Yeah.
had slept quite well as well. I went to bed at, say, 9, so I woke up at 5, and I didn't really need the coffee, but I thought I have it because I'm driving, and I'm like, oh my god, okay, let's do let's do some
Lucy's the
stuff.
same. I think if you don't have much of it, if you have it every day like I do, it's yeah, we've got
Oh, it
3
does it.
coffee makers in our house alone. I've got one in 3 different rooms. Like it's something that I really look forward to. I really enjoy it. It is a little bit of addiction in there for sure. But then Lucy can't have more than 2, and she'll be wired, whereas I can have like 6 and feel relatively normal, which is obviously not a good. There are worse things I could be doing, is how I told you. Sometimes you have to have a few vices to feel normal, and coffee is, if that's the worst of mine,
You
I
go
can handle that.
you go to bed, you only get maybe like 6 hours a night, do you, or 5?
Yeah, I
What do
average
you get?
under 6 on my. I can probably get up metrics up actually. Let's have a look. Well, I know because you've been getting really good optimization scores, haven't you, recently? You've been looking like,
Yeah.
I think you were saying you'd like be getting some really good scores in your ordering and everything else.
Yeah. Well, today, I mean, it's peaks and troughs actually, but like certainly today, I think I was like readiness 96 and whatever. But not that for the listeners, it's all about metrics and stuff. I just find it interesting to compare the metrics with how I feel and how it generally reflects the
Well, I've
how I
realized
feel. And also,
everything is switched off for this podcast recording. So I'm in sleep mode, but I got my, here we go. So, sleep score
it's over the last
yesterday
year.
was 78. I got 5 hours and 41 minutes of sleep. My insight: your sleep was short, but your body recharged well. You effectively balanced your stress by getting rest periods. Basically, I was sat on a train all day. That's why. Those habits help improve your sleep quality. It was basically just sat on a train. That's slightly not quite accurately. Deep sleep, 1 hour and 4 minutes. Light sleep, 3 hours 48. REM 59 minutes.
REM 50. Yeah. So for example, my REM last night was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
My deep sleep
Well, that's your
is about
vivid
an hour and
dreams
a
you're
half.
talking about as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, you get vivid dreams. I gave a mat to my mum without telling her about it, and I kept asking her, "How's your sleep going? How's your?" Because wanted to see placebo. She can't really tell much difference, but then I think she's getting kind of weirder dreams, and then my sister is getting kind of weirder dreams. I think with it, it kind of becomes quite vivid. But yeah, I
I
don't
tell you what
know.
was interesting the other day, and I don't know if this is an old wives' tale, but we had cheese and biscuits the other day before bed. We had a last day of the winter. Well, obviously, since I last saw you, I've been to Bermuda and I've been to the Lake District. And the Lake District, the day we left, we had
Yeah.
like a nice lunch, and quite a big lunch. So we didn't need dinner in the evening. We had some cheese and biscuits and stuff. My sister very kindly got me a hamper of bits for something I did for her. So we thought we'll dive into those. But we ate a lot of cheese. And I remember this being an old wives' tale. I don't know if it's true or not. You might know some science behind it. But all of us had really vivid dreams the following day. And I know they used to be saying avoid cheese, that cheese brings nightmares, but I know cheese also the idea is it brings vivid dreams. And Eva, the following, my daughter was like, oh my God, I just dreamt, I had so many vivid dreams. But all of us had really vivid dreams. My son, I did. And I don't know if it was the cheese or whatever it was, but it was quite an interesting following morning.
Yeah, it was. I'm sure the cheese, but I'm not sure the science behind that.
No, I don't
What
know.
it
But
actually.
you know the old wives' tale,
How
isn't
was
it? Avoid cheese for nightmares.
how was Bermuda, by the way?
You know what? It was stunning and way nicer than I anticipated. By the way, very accessible. We got there on a real shoestring. We stayed in an Airbnb. We had the luck. We're very lucky because of my work. We pick up a lot of Amex points, so we got a companion flight. So you buy one flight, you get a free flight at the same level. So me and my wife went out there. We got an Airbnb, which was like some huge mansion, and they had their kids had left home, and they had a pool house, and they just rent out the pool house. They converted it, so we had our own private pool. We were there in this little pool house. But what was interesting, I don't know if you know this or not, the sand there is pink, and it makes the
Yeah.
water like an unbelievable turquoise. Like it's the most stunning water I've ever seen, and so inviting, crystal clear. But not just like, you see these pictures and you think they've been filtered, and it's like these hot. It was like that, but without the filter. It was unbelievably turquoise, really lovely, colorful. They call it parrotfish underneath, that really big, multicolored fish. Hidden pools where you could, hidden beaches, hidden coves. Stunning. Absolutely way nicer from a beach perspective. From if you want to go swimming in warm waters, they're absolutely crystal clear, stunning. Don't think I've ever experienced a sea prettier. I know we've been to Zanzibar, been to some nice places, but yeah, absolutely beautiful. The towns were nice as well. They were quite
Wow.
small. Yeah, interesting. You've
And you
got
went
a big
all
English
day.
influence because it's in the Commonwealth, and a lot of US influence as well. It's full of reinsurance businesses, so lots of wealth. It's the insurance companies that insure the insurers. So a lot of wealth, a
Oh,
lot of
right.
big yachts and
I
boats.
mean, maybe I might ask you for details on that Airbnb actually, because I'm thinking whether I try and get away for 5 to 7 days just before Christmas. I had thought that maybe I might have 3 or 4 weeks off over Christmas. I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think I kind of like the idea of spending Christmas in the new house with family. But there is a 9-day period, I think, before Christmas where I'm free. And I also have air miles and a companion voucher that will
Okay,
expire on the 27th of December.
happy to share. And
And
all
the
just
yeah.
as the host, because I did give her the name of the show, so you never know. Maybe she's listening. She was amazing. So she drove us. She gave us a tour of the island, took us some real hidden places. She was like super accommodating. Really looked after us. So Perfect. Yeah, we had a really lovely time. It was very short. We
All
were there
right, I
like
might.
3, 4 nights, but really lovely.
Well, yeah, I might do the same. I might just try and go for 5 nights, especially if I don't know if Virgin Atlantic fly to Bermuda. Maybe they
Don't know.
do
It
if they do.
was super easy. 7 hours. They're only 4 hours behind or ahead, so it's not, you don't really get any jet lag, and it was direct, so really easy, really easy.
Yeah, I might look into it because either that or probably maybe Cape Verde, which is even less of a time difference, and I've not been there before, and that might be quite a nice one just for a
Yeah, I've
few
not done
days
Cape
or
Verde,
something.
but it's the water, pink sand, and
Yeah,
just it's just unbelievably beautiful. So
well, that'll
got
be
back
quite good.
for a week
Uh,
and then went to the Lake District with the kids for half term, which was also lovely. So everyone loves the Lake District.
That's
That was love
nice.
summer. Got on
I
the old steam
I
rail.
have a trip to Tenerife for a weekend. Well, I wanted to make it for a week, but unfortunately, I have work now, like the Wednesday, Thursday, and then the Tuesday onwards. So, and I'm doing a talk at a festival there, Co Nectar Festival, I think it's called. So if this goes out before the 27th or 28th of November. I'm not sure if they still got places or if you live in Tenerife and you're listening to this. But I'll be doing a talk there on unlocking your superhuman and talking about the beat model and the book and a little bit of an interactive session as well. And then just seeing what else is there. I think I'm going to have the most regular kind of talk there. I think everything else is a bit more kind of out there
Okay.
in terms of
You'll
the
you'll
stuff.
laugh.
But
I got back from
yeah,
Manchester yesterday. I was up giving a talk myself. I was doing a keynote against some. So I was in in some interesting company. So um, they made me go last, which was fine because it was a payroll related conference, and obviously I've been working in the payroll industry for 20 plus years. But I went after the first ever female RAF jet fighter pilot and an Olympic gold medalist. So I was like, thanks. Nothing like following two very accomplished individuals. Both with MBEs. I'm like, okay, great. But to be fair, they gave good talks. It was fun. But I tried something which my colleague, and I don't know if maybe some payroll people listen to this or not, but my colleague said, don't do it. It won't work in a UK audience. I thought, I'm going to try something in the talk and let's just see if it works. I would say, I'll tell you what it is in a minute. It did work, but it works in a slightly different way to what I thought. So I had a little moment where I asked everyone to get up off their seats and to work through my fear framework so you feel more confident. They work them through it. I said, get off your seats and repeat after me. And it was kind of an empowering little thing around payroll of how they're leading the future and get them feeling it because they're quite an introverted community generally, right? People work in payroll, and there's a reason why. If anyone listening to this works in the organization, it's probably unlikely you know who your payroll manager is because you only really need to call them if there's something wrong. So often they work in silence, and they're almost their achievement is if no one's calling or speaking to me, I'm doing my job well, right? So it's like being the domestique in a cycle race, right? It's the silence is their reward. So I thought, well, I'm going to change the narrative and get them up. My colleague said, don't do it. Like, it's proper cringe. It's a UK audience. It's not the US. Like, they won't want it. They're so introvert. They don't want to get up. And I was like, no, I'm going to try it. Anyway, we did it and they all got up. And to be fair, the audience were brilliant. But what I didn't anticipate was just how cult-like it felt. When there were all with about 100 people in the audience, and it was so cult-like. We had people coming to see in the top window balconies. They all came and opened it, what was going on. And the tone and the way that I end up leading the talk was a repeat after me. I was thinking, God, what are people thinking when they look into the window? I've created this huge underground cult of 100 people repeating after me words that if you're not in payroll, you probably wouldn't even understand. And my colleague was like, yeah, like you've literally created a cult. And I was like, that wasn't necessarily my aim. I think it kind of worked. I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was quite fun. It was fun.
yeah, you got to try. You got to try, right? And yeah, you're probably that's similar to some of the things I do. I'll go to these events, and people are chanting this or doing this, and you're like, what
Yeah.
the hell is going on? And I just, it's all good. It's all good fun.
But it's quite empowering. You get people to stand up. That changes your physiology. You feel different. It does add energy to the system. You've been sat down all day listening to talks, and you start to switch off. People get their phones out, and I was trying to get everyone on change your physiology, stand up. And if I'm doing a talk about fear and how to overcome it, right? A lot of people don't like doing it. So here's an opportunity to literally live and breathe what we've just been discussing, but do it as a community. You're not on your own. And I'll label your fear for you, which is fear of feeling like a wally or fear of being embarrassed. But if everyone does it with you, you don't need to worry about that fear. Like, we're all in it together. That's kind of the idea behind it. And it did work, but it was like, Gabe, I don't know if you ever used to watch that show, the English actor in America, where he used to, the cult following and everyone, I think it was called The Following, wasn't it? It was called The Following. A really good show. Anyway, it reminded me of that, of everyone just standing up and just repeating after me. And I was like, oh my God, it feels, it's a strange feeling of, I wouldn't say power, but weirdness when everyone's repeating after you these words. So anyway, it was good fun.
Tenuous link to your mention there of following on from an Olympian. I was I can't remember if I told you this or not, but when I received, so I ordered the Kirk that you were talking about before, I think.
Yes. How are you finding it? Have you noticed the difference? I swear by it.
Honestly, I noticed the difference within about a couple of days. Like,
Yeah.
it feels to me that just I've had WD-40 sprayed everywhere, or there's just been like this grease move. I can't explain it because like my injuries are still kind of there, but there's some kind of fluid. And actually, what was interesting, and the reason for the Olympic comment, is when I got the box and I opened up the pamphlet. I don't know if you get the pamphlet as well.
Yeah. They give you
there's
the
two
tracker.
well, yeah, and on that tracker, those two people, right? So Leon Taylor is the guy that wrote the foreword for my.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I saw it, and I
Whoa.
texted him, and I was like, and he's like, oh yeah, they're really good, they're nice small. So actually, I've decided to become like, I've signed up to be an affiliate because I'm like telling all these people about it. I'm like, I
We're doing it
really
on the
recommend
podcast as well. This goes out to 2,000-3,000 people every night, downloading it. So there you go.
Thing is, I don't know. The link is all a bit weird, but maybe I'll post it in the show notes or something. But honestly, so I've recommended. So my sister, I think, has bought some today. I've recommended it to a few other people. Don't know if they bought it, but I'm like, I feel, can't quite explain it, but there's something like, and I was playing beach volleyball a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, running about, jumping around like the 10 and 12-year-olds are, and it feels like my body feels safer to do that. Even though I've still got like a little bit of injury, a little bit of a wrist injury, but there's
For me, it's like
something definitely
paddle.
going.
Waking up, I played paddle at 7 a.m. this morning, and I swear, and I know it's a different sport. It's not as strenuous as like Ironman training, but I remember waking up in the mornings and being really stiff and going, "Oh my God, like, got to try and get up and get on a bike now." And it takes an hour to wake up and really go for it.
Yeah.
Since I've been taking this, like, I don't know, it just feels like I'm 44, 45, and instead feel more like I'm 34, 35, and just how your body feels. You're not like you're 21, but you just feel like you can actually get up and play and you can move around a bit better. And I was in Manchester, I didn't have it with me. I played a paddle up there, and you feel, when you stop taking it, you don't quite feel, as you say, like as lubricated as you would do with WD-40. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're
I
finding
signed up
it.
to the subscription, and I give it to my mum. My mum doesn't notice any difference, but I'm way more in tune with my body, I believe. So when little subtle changes happen, I kind of notice it. So yeah, I mean, that's only one of 3 supplements that I think I've ever taken where I noticed it, the other one being cordyceps and the other one being the Biooptimizer's magnesium that I take, and they're the ones that I notice it that day or within 24 hours. Something's up. So yeah, so
Oh,
pretty
I'm
good.
glad
So
you're getting
thanks for
on with it.
that point.
Very
Yeah,
welcome. I
yeah,
should mention
yeah.
as
So
well, because I didn't do a service to the people that I followed on the talks. I should probably mention them. So I followed Dr. Joe Salter, MBE, who was the first RAF jet fighter pilot in the RAF. I think one of the first 5 females fighter pilots in the world at the time. And then I followed Kate Richardson Walsh, who is OBE, not MBE, who was the gold medal winning hockey captain. So they spoke. There was 3 keynotes on the day, and I was the third. So a really interesting day, to be fair. But some pretty decent people to have to follow, which is actually a really lovely thing, but also a little bit like, how can you top that? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make turn you all into a cult. That's what I'm going to do. Repeat after me.
I remember going to a talk once, and it was a guy, like one of these like sort of motivational marketing people, guy called Brendan Bouchard, actually. And I used to follow him many years ago, and actually went to his course. And his course was that weekend when I come up with a beat model before that, but I named it the beat model that weekend. And then
Yeah.
he challenged us to do an online course within 6 weeks, and I put it onto Udemy and all that. But the reason I mentioned him is because he was talking about how he was doing a keynote once, and he had to follow the guy who, have you ever seen the movie 127 Hours?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
it's the
yeah, with
guy.
the guy who cuts his arm
Yeah,
off.
yeah. So he followed him
Oh my
like
god, yeah,
after
that's
giving,
tough.
yeah, with a motivational
He
talk
wasn't doing
about
a talk from the Zillions, was he? That'd be a nightmare. At least mine was on payroll.
but again, he made, but Brendan Shaw's quite good in terms of a speaker, so he made a whole talk about the talk that he had to follow this guy, sort of thing. So you might end up making it into a talk someday. But
I did open with a
yeah,
parable, though. You'll be pleased to hear because I took some notes, and Dr. Joe Salter and Kate Richardson Walsh were both talking about being women in sort of male dominated profession in the RAF, and also just dealing with different things going through life, right? And they both talked about how you've got to have a strong sense of self and don't take all the criticism. But in the media space, it's very easy to wear it all. So you'll be pleased. I thought I'll open my talk with something different, and it didn't necessarily relate to what my talk was about, but I wanted to bring it to the audience's attention, which was the whole thing say to my kids, where I picked up a stress ball, which was one of the things that I had at one of the expos, and I said to the person at the front, "If I give you this as a gift and you don't take it, who does it belong to?" He says, "It belongs to you." And I said, "The same thing applies to an insult or something you see. Just because someone says it doesn't make it true. So if you see an insult and you choose not to receive it, where does that insult live? It lives with the person that gave it." So as a little bit of a reminder to everyone in the room, because they are quite introvert and payroll doesn't always get the best time, is relatively underappreciated. So I thought that might be a nice little take home for people to share either with their kids or just to bear in mind, because people do take criticism on and wear it. Which actually brings me to something. I don't know if it's the right time to do it on this show, but maybe do it next episode. But whether or not, and I'm asking you because you've studied both. I would say that I haven't. I've studied both, but don't necessarily practice both as frequently as I should. But there's a question online that I saw: is breath work the new meditation? Has it replaced traditional meditation? Searches on Google for breath work near me are up over 150% since 2023. Now, I just think I'd be interested to get your take as someone who practices both meditation and breath work. And you could argue they're one and the same as well, potentially. But we've got box breathing. We've talked a lot about Wim Hof. You've got Dr. Andrew Huberman's obviously on his show. He pushes it a lot to when you control your breathing, you control your state. Doesn't necessarily talk about meditation in quite the same way. I feel there's been a little bit of separation between the two. So I'd be interested. Maybe we save
definitely.
for another show, or we can talk about it now. It's up to you.
No, we could talk. I mean, I don't think it's too big a conversation. You're breathing when you meditate, but breathwork and meditation are different things. Now, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in either, although I practice both. But for example, classic example was last week, I think, where I was actually feeling a little bit stressed about an email I received, and I hadn't slept. I slept quite well. Actually, I wasn't thinking about the thing too much, but when I woke up, and I woke up at say 5:30, I couldn't go back to sleep because I was thinking about the thing. And then I got up, and my mind was not ready for meditation. It was just not going to sit there and meditate. And so on one the days like that, I actually default to like a breath work, like a
Yeah.
Wim Hof specifically, because your mind doesn't have to be as silent, and you don't have to. It's easier to do when you feel like you've got a monkey mind, I think. And my sister, years ago, when she was into the Wim Hof, because she could never get on with meditation, she found the breath work stuff easier, that kind of breath work. Yeah, they're both different. They're both being monetized, and you think, how can, like, it never ceases
I
to
know. How
amaze
can
me
you
the
monetize something that's so free? Yeah.
yeah, how can you? Yeah, but people do, right? People make lots of money. I know people who, they run the retreats and I'm like, how, okay, there's a lot of science behind breath. There's a lot, you can probably do lots and lots of courses on it. But at the end of the day, it's something that's free, right? But so is meditation, right? People make money off meditation.
Yeah.
So is everything. A lot of the things we do are free, but we make money off it. Sleep, right? You can make money off sleep, right? But they are very fundamentally different. I think certain breath work is designed to create the opposite sensation of what meditation does. So meditation is more going to try and bring you into a parasympathetic state. A lot of breath work, unless it's a meditative breath, like a box breathing or a 1-2 breath or whatever. Some of the breath work that is kind of popular is that, and like the Wim Hof is one classic example. that actually brings you into a sympathetic nervous system state. So it's the opposite of a relaxation state, because it's designed to cause stress. And he doesn't care whether you breathe into the mouth or the nose, just get the air in, as he says,
Make the
MF
body
air in.
uncomfortable and deal. It's the resilience and the
Yeah, then
different kind
you
of
put yourself
challenge.
in a stressful state, and
Yeah.
you manage that stress in the moment. And so that was actually a suitable kind of breath work to me at the time. But they are fundamentally different, although they have the same things
So
going
would
on.
you could you get on board with a headline that we read in tomorrow's whatever publication is, Wellness Monthly, that breathwork is the new meditation? Or do you think they are
I mean,
still separate enough that
well,
that
I
doesn't
think
quite
what they
work
say
yet?
that, what they mean is just that it's the new
I've just made
trend,
up that
right?
headline, by the
So
way. I'm not saying it's there. I'm just
yeah. No, I get that. I get that. But I think that would be, yeah, akin to sort of, before it was, 10 years ago, maybe it was meditation, then it was mindfulness. And now breathwork is having its period in the sun, so to speak. So
and I have to go cyclical because
honestly,
that's how we cycle the revenue, right? We go from one to the other. When everyone spent all their money on mindfulness, we have to spend our money back on breathwork again, and that's how the marketing piece
yeah.
works.
So actually, I have thought about it a little bit, because I thought, what is the next thing, right? Because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, well, I started doing yoga, say 2007, and I remember, or maybe I started doing it regularly 2008. I started my first class in 2005, but the teacher I was seeing in 2008, and I was with him for 5 years. But he was saying how, 10 years ago there was no really people doing yoga, and certainly not in gyms. And then I remember being in a class not that long ago, and then saying the same thing for 10 years ago. I was thinking, actually, no, there was quite a lot of yoga back in 2008, but yoga got really big. And then now, then it became Pilates, then it became reformer Pilates. And then what's the other thing? Bar is the other one. For all these are kind of the ones that most guys don't
And you
go
get
for, right?
different names for HIIT training and different cycles of routines. People have to reinvent it in order to be able to resell it, right?
Yeah,
That's often how it works.
yeah. And so but I'm thinking, like, and what do you think is the next? Because I didn't pitch. I mean, breathwork is not in. It's not in many classes. It's not in many things. But you've got that. Then you've got ice baths are now also having their moment in the sun, right? Like ice, and there's
But
wellness clubs, which
you
is just
might
focused
like
on
what I think the
recovery.
next thing is. I think I know what the next thing
Yeah.
is. And
What do
what
you
I
think it
say,
is?
and I don't think I'm being pioneering here. I think there's enough out there that probably suggests this might be the next thing. But you and I have talked a lot about healing through frequency. So I think sound
Hmm.
therapy, it's already out there, but it's not there en masse. But I we
Okay.
it's getting
Yeah.
over the stigma of walking into, the idea of crystal bowls and things. It creates a certain thing in our mind
Bombard.
of, yeah, and I'm not necessarily mean that's what it is, but I do think they're becoming more mainstream, and we're in a healing market now of alternative therapy. And I think there is, as a drummer anyway, and someone who loves sound and I love therapy, and you and I are both quite fans of the idea of healing therapy. I think we both think there's probably something in it.
Yeah.
You've done more sound
I think
bathing and things than I have, but there's a lot of benefits associated with sound bathing, and there's a lot of neuroscience that supports it as well. And obviously, I've been studying neuroscience. I think because I've been studying the science of the brain recently anyway, as you know, I'm doing that Cambridge course at the moment, and I'm finding it really fascinating, by the way. I've started researching how sound impacts the brain waves anyway. I think that's probably the next thing, because again, you can do it to breath, you can do it to yoga, you can
yeah,
hot
I think
yoga, and maybe it's probably
that's more
sound
fun.
therapy yoga, it's yoga
Yeah,
to
I think
bowls, it's yoga to gongs.
something that I watch out for sometimes is when, say, my mum says, "Oh, this thing's been mentioned on the One show," or whatever. What I notice is the BBC tends to be about 10 years behind me, and most of my friends who are not in the same space as me, they tend to be about 10 years behind me. So things that I was maybe doing 10 years ago crop up now. So like, not many people, so everyone is talking about maybe blue light now. Maybe there's a little bit more focus on, I think there's a few more years before people cotton onto the glasses and things like that. But 10 years ago, people were talking about yoga, and I've been doing that prior to that. I tend to be about 10 years, I think, behind the absolute cutting edge stuff. So the things that are there. I tend to find, so it takes about 20 years for most things to have mass adoption. For example, you might think that, the 1950s was when people started having TVs and
Keep
stuff, but
talking. I'm
TVs
going
were
to disappear
invented
out of
like,
shop. I'm listening. Keep talking. Keep
yeah.
talking.
So TVs were created in the 1930s. Mass adoption of radio happened in the 1930s, but it was really in the 1910s that radio came about. The internet mass adoption really was around 2000, but the internet was created in 1983 or whenever it was. Um, and so I think most people are like, most mass adoption of things is 20 years behind when it becomes a little bit more profound. And I tend to be about 10 years ahead of mass adoption of some of these things. So I try to think like, what did I learn about 10 years ago? What did I, like, for example, the gut microbiome. Yeah, so all of that actually. Oh, I tell you what was coming up. And I almost bought
Go on.
it on Kickstarter, but it was something I thought of 15 years ago. And the reason I haven't bought it is because I think A, they want a subscription model to it, and B, I hadn't done enough research into what it's actually checking. But it's a device that you just clock onto your toilet, and it will analyze your wee and your
Yeah.
stool.
I think you talked about this on the
And
last
then,
episode. It tells you, yeah, about your health.
yeah, but I don't know. But my gut feeling, as it were, pardon the pun, was that just through I don't know if it's optical recognition or if it's some sort of feedback mechanism, but you're not going to get super great data, I don't think, from it. But I do believe, and I've thought about this as a concept for maybe 12 years now, since I first heard about the microbiome and stuff, is that will really be the kicker. Because if you can get that, so that every day you get a reading, and then the next phase is what you're deficient in, for
I mean,
example,
it'll
and then
work from a marketing
it'll,
perspective because people love their data, right? So people will just want to see stuff and will spend money on data from blood tests. But I still think sound bathing is going to be the next thing. I'll tell you what, I read a quote from Sarah Oster. I'm going to show you something in a minute. She's a sound healer, and I've got something I'll show you with you in a minute. That's why I went to just jump that way we were talking. But she said, and the reason I highlight this is it links to breath work, it links to meditation, links to yoga. As fair enough, I'm quoting it because I think it's really quite clever. She says, "Sound is the medicine that helps the mind remember silence. That's why we need it.
sound
Sound is the medicine
medicine.
that helps the mind remember silence." So again, if you're using it in the
Mhm.
right context, I've got one of these, which is I mean, it's a bit dusty there. As you said, I've been used for it. Well, God, that's pretty bad. I'm seeing
Oh,
dust in
go
the
on,
thing.
these to those. Yeah. How come you've got one of these? That's very strange. Why
Well,
have
I'm
you
a
got one?
drummer. So when I've got my drumsticks, I like playing any kind of percussion instrument interests me. And I found this. It's quite expensive back in the day. I'm not sure I haven't used, I can tell by the dust, it's not there. You can play all kinds of tunes from it, but this is the kind of thing that I think we're going to see a lot more of. And it is, if you're meditating or you're breathing to these kind of sounds, if you think about the things you buy to get in your headphones these days with the kind of things you get when you're trying to help meditate or guided meditations, it's these sounds you hear in the background though. And I think there's a therapy to having the ability to create it yourself, which I've got here. Um, and it's, I don't know, sometimes these are things that help you appreciate the silence a bit more. So, in answer to your question, what's next? I think sound bathing and sound therapy and healing through frequency, which is obviously what creates different sounds in particular, will be quite big. Maybe not
Okay, I might
2025,
be.
maybe not even
I might be.
2026, but
I
that's
need
what
to
I
put
reckon.
this on. I can't remember if I showed you this last time. So for the viewers, I'm holding up onto the camera like this little device. I think I told this is something I picked up at the Health Optimization Summit. I haven't put it on for a couple of days, but it's stored frequencies apparently. So it's
Oh,
some sort of
okay.
quartz crystals on there, and they've uploaded certain frequencies to it, which will then emit. And this is supposedly for the vagus nerve, and you stick it on with effectively a little bit of kind of almost like pre-cut physio tape, and you just put it to wherever. I haven't noticed a difference in any of my objective data readings, but apparently last 9 months I bought it. I'll probably use it, but this is all frequency, and like I say, I think frequency is the medicine of the future. I was looking into a friend of my mum's has got, I think it's Parkinson's, or was it? Well, actually, another friend's in-law has got Alzheimer's, and they were asking me about things to do with that. And actually, maybe this would be a topic for next time when we do a bit of research. Something I'm curious about is creatine and methylation tests, which Gary Breck always talks about, and a friend of mine was talking about. So, but that's for a future topic. But I think like things like for Parkinson's, I was looking into photobiomodulation or light therapy and infrared lights, the caps that you wear. I was using one on my wrist yesterday because when I had my foot injury and I put infrared light on it, it was the only thing that really soothed it and helped it.
By the way, hot tip for people listening, if they've got teenage kids, like red light therapy can be amazing for people suffering with things like acne. Like really, really good. There's loads and loads of research and studies out there where you can go to the doctors, you can get medication and whatever. But actually red light therapy and the red light mask can be, if you get the right one, can be really good for.
Well, I did want to say something on that. I saw something yesterday that a bunch of these red light mask places got slapped by not Ofcom but some regulator. Because their devices weren't registered with the medical health MHRA or whatever, and so they can't claim, and they were claiming like benefits for skin and acne. And whilst it has been used for decades, like the medical grade ones, how much of these £50 masks, £100 masks?
That's why I said the right ones. I was my way of adding that because there's a lot of crap, and you can go to
now,
some
I've got
store
strong
online,
lights.
you know.
Actually, my sister, hopefully she doesn't mind me saying this, but I think she's got some stuff from like the breastfeeding, the hormones, whatever, and she's got like for like now 6 months like this weird, not acne, but something going on with her face, and I need to lend her my infrared red light stuff when I go, because she's got a mask but she doesn't wear it because I don't think she likes it physically on her, even though hers is a wireless one. So I'm going to give her my actual panel. But I certainly concur with that. I think I use my panel pretty much every day when I'm meditating. So those 15 minutes when I'm meditating, usually another half an hour when I'm rebounding, I try and have as much of my body exposed to it as possible, even though there is supposedly a saturation point.
The light you're on at the moment looks like you've overexposed. For anyone watching this on YouTube, mate, you've got that lovely orange glow. It's like you've it's penetrated and it's reflecting. Oh,
that's now it looks normal because that was actually the light. So this is actually a special light bulb which doesn't have blue light in it. So when I turn it on, that's why it's got that kind of thing.
I'm
now
teasing.
the lights
you look
are
good.
here.
You look good. I'm aware that we've kept our audience for a good hour. We've chatted about quite a bit, to be fair. Sound therapy, breath work, sleep, holidays, sex in the bedroom with the television on or off, and a few other things. So it's good to see you. It's been a couple of weeks. We usually connect a little bit more frequently than we have. So it's been good to catch up, buddy. Let's jump into the subject of creatine next time.
I think so, yeah. So if we do meet on Monday, I think creatine would be a good one, because I need a lot of people have been asking me that as well for brain health, you know, for Alzheimer's and things like that. And I the only thing I remember about creatine, even though I've been hearing a lot about it the last 6 months, is back in 1997 when my flatmate at uni who was into bodybuilding or going to the gym, was doing the creatine. And that's about as far as my extent goes. So I do need to look into it a bit more, because I think it might be a good thing to look into.
I'm happy to talk about it as well. I've taken a fair bit of creatine when I'm doing my endurance workouts, and it's part of my sports nutrition training. So I can share a little bit of my limited knowledge on creatine as well, and how you can use it supplementing for, certainly for endurance sports, all that kind of thing, which might be useful for people as well. So very good.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to coming to stay and hopefully having an early night at 9:30, an early dinner at 6, and seeing if with no blue light and no phones and no distractions and a good bit of exercise and some good conversation, mate, that I can have an early night and see what my metrics look like the following day. So let's get that in the diary as well.
Yeah, definitely. Look forward to that, man. All right.
Good stuff. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do remember to subscribe, follow if you can, give us a like, leave us a review on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast platform is. We don't always ask because we get too busy into our own chitter chatter. which is kind of the point of the show, right? We wanted to feel like you're joining into our own little conversations, which is what this is all about. But we really do appreciate any likes and subscribes and follows. And most importantly, actually, if you can share this with anyone you think might benefit either from today's content or any other content. We've got a really good, pretty strong back catalogue of subjects we've tackled now. So hopefully there's something in there for
Yeah. But
everyone.
one
So
thing I
please
didn't
do
mention,
let
though,
us know.
well, I didn't mention that if any listeners are wanting to, so I have set up this WhatsApp challenge group that I set up maybe 6 years ago, and we do monthly. At the moment, we're doing monthly challenges, 30-day challenges, all based on the beat model. So this month it's all about education. But send me a DM on Instagram, so the Thought Gym on Instagram, if you want more details on that, and then maybe we can add people to the WhatsApp group as well, is what I would say. So I know that's just a last little bit of thrown in there. But yeah, DM me on
Or DM
Instagram.
at our mindful past one as well, which is mindful_past_podcast on Instagram. So you'll pick it up either way. So that'd be good. All right, Harry, I'll let you get on, mate. You've had your dinner. I need to go and cook mine, which is not going to happen
I
quite
have
yet.
actually. I'm gonna have it now.
I'm going to go
I'll make some
take
now.
my wife to the beach. I'm going to go for a little walk along the coastline, and we're probably going to stop in a pub called The Grove and have a glass of wine because I finished work early today, which is very, very rare for me. There's nothing I need to go back to my computer to do, so I'm going to be disciplined and not go back to it. And having been away in Manchester for the last few days, I'm going to take the dog and my wife to the beach, probably the kids. Dark walks, really nice, along the coastline. It's all lit up, lovely.
Nice.
And going to get a glass of wine, and maybe that'll help me sleep better as well.
All right, you do that. All right, take care, buddy.
All right, mate. Take it easy.